On today's episode of the podcast, we're on episode 38, and I got my guys here, Mark and Puya, from their very own podcast, Lattes and Wisdom, and today we talk about love, life, esoteric beliefs, overcoming fear, and so much more. So you guys are really going to enjoy the episode, so let's get into it. She worked with Pathfinder, the media company, from like the beginning, basically, and she helped us build it up, and then we had the baby, and so she kind of like took a seat back, but then it was like kind of like a little bit of an ego, like, you know, I helped build it and you're like the face and you're like out there and everyone thinks you're the successful guy, and you know, I had a lot to do with it. And so then she's like, I never want to work with you again, you suck, like you whatever, right? And so we built the business to like this level, and then she stepped away, and then I'm just kind of like, you know, keeping it going, like, but we haven't like grown beyond like that spot. And recently, like maybe the last 2 or 3 months, she's like really involved with this place, like, and she's starting to leak into like Pathfinder again. And it's created such a more like passionate, like incredible relationship, like, because that's what we built our original relationship on. It's like I was just going this way, and then she came and like helped amplify it. And so we built like everything upon working together, is like how we even got together. And so now like coming back into her working together, it's like everything's been better, like more passionate, more patient, more like loving around everything, you know, taxes even. She's doing like tax stuff, and like everything has been way better since she's been involved again. So it's pretty dope.
What was the conversation you guys? Are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording. So
what was the
at the end?
What was the conversation you had the second time around? Did you have any? Like, did you guys clarify what happened?
Yeah,
because that seems like a tough one, man. It's like there's a bit of ego involved.
It was ego on both sides.
On both sides, man.
Both sides, huge.
Which is a crazy thing to have, thinking that, you know, it's with your wife, you guys have a kid. And it requires almost like an approach from both parties, right?
Yeah.
And a clarification from both parties. Because ultimately, man, whether it's your face or her face, you guys are one now.
Yeah, right? We live the same lifestyle. That's why. But that was an old fight. That was my ego, right? But I have become a better leader, like with our team, and like now she's part of. You know, I don't think of it like that anymore, like in an ego. I just think of it as like from a leadership standpoint. So I'm a better leader. I'm more patient. I'm more like, so I've developed as a person. But like we got in these big fights, and like we're like, you know, we want to level up and we want to do this, and she wants to spend like 2 months in Japan, whatever. Like, and I'm like, dude, we're never gonna get beyond like the place we're at until we start coming together on one vision. So she started like a whole other business, like the candle business. It was an e-commerce business, and it did pretty well. But like our forces were so divided, and I was like, until we could come together, and this was a long fight. It took like 3 years to resolve. And I was like, until we could come together on one vision and like really put all our life force into it, is what's like, that's what propelled us to here. And we're not going to get there until we do that again. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, it was like a lot of like, I had to, you know, put my ego down, and then she had to kind of like be like, okay, I see what you're saying. And I mostly take full accountability. I look at it like it was entirely my fault, and I've just become a better leader and a better husband and more patient. And then I kind of feel like I've attracted her, because I've been trying to recruit her to work back with us like forever. She's like the smartest, best person I've ever met. And like my assistant, well, she's not my assistant, but like my operation manager, Jazz, is like a close second, but she's like way like leagues, you know, my wife is way better at everything. And so I always try to recruit her back. And finally, like, I'm like, okay, she gave me another shot. Like, I'm not messing it up this time, you know? And I told her, like, I now see it from like a point where it's like, I appreciate and value everything so much more at such a high level that I don't want to ever like do anything to like make her upset, or like, not that obviously we fight and have disagreements, but like make it to where she doesn't want to work together anymore. So I don't know.
Did it seem like to you that her ideas are a little bit maybe on the whim, or too exploratory, or not necessarily aligned with the structure that you had set initially? Was that some of the mismatch that had happened, where you're like, oh, we're here, but now you're saying Japan, and it's like completely out of, well, is that like, because I'm struggling with that sometimes as well.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make sense. It's not adding up. But then also realizing that's a superpower as well, when the other person has that, because they're thinking outside of the box. In a lot of ways. So it's like framing that almost, right? And
so maybe I'm backwards. She's like the frame, and I'm like all over.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I can tell that about you because I'm similar to that.
Yeah.
I have this kind of, to some degree, scatterbrained approach when it comes to like the amount of things I want to get involved in at one time.
Yeah.
And so maybe she provides some more of their structure, but he's like, no, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And then there's just some kind of tension between that, or at least not tension, but even friction.
Yeah, well, and it's healthy. So I think like it's healthy that like that's what makes the growth is that like critical thought and that like pressure of like that brainstorming session. But it's ego. Like what would happen is I would give her my feedback on the idea and then she would get upset. Like it would hurt her feelings and she would just like disconnect from it. But she was right and I was right. We're both right. We're just trying to figure out how the puzzle would fit. And so now like when we get in these like intense like mastermind brainstorm sessions with her really healthy, right? Like she might get passionate, I might get passionate. But we don't take it personal anymore. Now it's like, okay, let's like, I'm going to go to my desk, you go to your desk, we'll like reconnect and see how the approach happened. But like everything she said has been accurate and everything that I've said has been accurate. It's just like maybe my vision of how it would be is not the same as hers and like vice versa. Her vision is not the same as mine. But once you can mold it and fit it together and understand like we're both kind of on the same page, it's like...
All relationship is compromise at some level. Like
Yeah.
you're going to have to kind of swallow your pride a little bit and be able to see that maybe you're both not right. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle of that and you both just have strong opinions and strong views of where things should go. Mm-hmm. Whereas what you really need to do is be better at listening to each other and going, you know what? I'm just going to settle and just let you finish what you're saying first and then kind of sit with it for a while and then we'll come back to this tomorrow.
100%.
And then you come back and you've had time for things to kind of settle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of reapproach it that way. I mean, what kind of thing do you do with your relationship? And
I think that's the challenge, right? Because when we're alone, we're very much just focused on where we want to go, right? So you live very much based on the ego. When two egos join, though, now you have this potential for unity, but you still have the egos interacting with one another. So to some degree, I think what you were saying is key. Is like if you can get your own ego in check, forget about your partner. Mm-hmm. You might initially think that you're making yourself small, which is, again, ego thinking. That's the first reaction when you realize that you're looking at that situation, like if you think about it like that, from eyesight as a human. Mm-hmm. But if you use mind sight or God sight, if you want to talk about that, what you're actually doing is you're bringing everyone in one boat. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that actually puts you in control. It doesn't make you smaller. Mm. Because when you have your ego in check, see how the other person then all of a sudden cools down too. But if you keep pushing, you're waiting for that other person to make the first move. And that's part of that is self-mastery.
Yeah.
So that applies in the relationship, but also across, right?
I noticed something about my parents as well when I was back home in England recently. So they've been married since 1968 and they still rocking together. So there's some level of compromise that they've managed to achieve, which is beyond anything that I've been able to understand in my life, at least.
Yeah.
And they pray with each other every morning.
Oh, that's cool.
So they still have a moment where their eyes are closed, essentially, but they are cut off from their individual views on things and they get to air out everything that's on their mind together. In an environment where they don't get to say whether one's right or the other one's wrong or like whatever it is. It's above that.
Yeah.
They're just putting out the way that they feel. And even if they have gotten annoyed with each other or my dad's, is in a mood that morning or my mum's, like annoyed with the cat or something.
Yeah.
At that point, they know that they sit with each other and they talk and they put it out into the universe. So there's always something that levels them. There's always that point of the day where they get to the bottom of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
and then after
incredible.
that, like you've just said things out loud to each other. And those things are usually not to do with yourself. They're about, Nigel at church has got the bad back and someone else. Those things have then come out and then your problems and the things that you've been like, oh, why this, why that, suddenly seem to be not as big of a deal.
That's incredible. This is a funny way that I dealt with it. And it's so funny. I swear to God, I said this. I was like, she's probably wrong. But what if she was right? And it allowed me to be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But what if she did? And it allowed me to kind of like save face to myself. And it allowed it to, like the message to seep through. And then I was like, okay, like in an alternate universe, if she was right, like, you know, maybe this makes sense. And I was able to intake it and absorb it and then like apply it and let her message come through to me.
Yeah, you went from ego, when you ask yourself that question, maybe she is right, you go from ego to humility. Because the moment you ask, maybe she is right, you're leaving the door open for yourself to expand your knowledge that right now might be limited. So you humble yourself to some extent, which allows you then to interact with the person. What was very interesting for me is studying and interacting with my own ego and applying what I could extract from there in the relationship, because that's two egos coming together. And for me to always to get my ego on board, it wants reasoning. So you have the constant interplay between the feeling state and the ego, like almost like your rational mind always going somewhere else. No, I know better. I have the plan. I have the structure. The way for me to get the ego on board is, yeah, but so, and so. So I give it actual reasons. The more reasons I give my ego, the more it comes on board with where I want to go. In a relationship, it's very, very similar because two egos are crashing. So when you sit her down and you actually say, look, man, what I was saying in terms of where we want to go with the podcast, with the business, the reason I said that is such and such and such. So all of a sudden the ego cools down on her end.
Yeah.
And you guys can integrate it and you can have this mutual mission. So a lot of it is exploring your own ego, and then you realize it's the same for everyone. And you can also then apply that in relationships, like with us when we work together on stuff, right? A lot of times it's like, my thing.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. But this is it. It's the same thing because we have a relationship too to some degree, and there is this battle of like wanting to feel that you're right, but like what decides what's right or wrong in any given situation?
Yeah.
Nothing is either right nor wrong, but thinking makes it so. So you're thinking that you're right and that she's wrong is just a mismatch. What you really, both of you are aiming for the same thing. We're aiming for the same thing, which is excellence. We want to achieve things that we can do to the best of our abilities. You want to find cohesion in that, and it's difficult because you are trying to fight your thing, and especially as a man, you know, you're out there on some kind of a crusade to kind of prove that to yourself, but then you also cut other people out at the same time if you don't have the opportunity to be able to bring them in. You're only one person on a planet of 8 billion, so there's so many other perspectives that can actually add to yours and help you grow in ways that you didn't even think of because you're already seeing it like that. And that is hard to kind of get over that hump because, well, you know, we're out there doing our thing. We're trying to be entrepreneurs. We're trying to be like, you know, figuring it out. I've got this. And we're logical thinkers.
Yeah.
Like men are. Like we're action based. So we come from that. We have to go and figure it out. But the more I've found is that, you know, when you open up to the other opportunity, it's actually like people are literally trying to help you. They've got your best interests at heart. It's also limiting to think that they're trying to get something from you, or that they just are, that they don't know because what? They're less than? No, that's bollocks, man. It does not work.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's also, what's very interesting about that is whether it's in a business relationship with someone you work closely together or with your partner, if you cannot believe that such an intimate relationship has a unified goal, imagine then how you will think with any other business partners or interactions. So the one thing is, like in our case, we have a goal, right? We want to grow the business. So you have that there, and then underneath we have two individuals acting from day to day. It's very, very easy to forget that mutual goal and go into survival mode, right? So a lot of it is becoming aware when that happens and thinking, bro, this guy, actually, we have the same thing. He's going to benefit from the growth as much as I do. Sorry. So constant practice of awareness is going to make you view the other person's opinions in a very different way. It's like, of course, he's on board. Of course, she's on board. But it's being aware of it when it happens.
It's also something we've talked about recently as well, which is to try and be as neutral in any given situation as possible. to be as open to it actually opens you out to so many other opportunities. Being neutral is really difficult though, because again, we default to this, like trying to work out a solution to the thing that's in front of us. But Marcus Aurelius, you're familiar with the Stoic philosophies.
I have it right there.
Marcus Aurelius,
Which one?
The Daily Stoic.
Okay.
Yeah, amazing. So Marcus Aurelius says something like, the nearer a man can get to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. So our job really is to kind of be as much of an open listening vessel as we possibly can, and to be as unreactive as we can.
Yeah.
So that we can make the best possible choice overall for the family.
Yeah. That's a serious skill, like to really stay even keel, like even in the really like high successes and even in the lowest low, it's like you have to still remain at the even tempered, at that like openness to like, okay, I'm observing this, not like becoming tied up in the emotion. Cause like you could get tied up in the emotion or the optimism of something exciting, and you could get blind to that. Like you could be so excited, so optimistic, and you just go off a cliff, like, you know, cause you think you could fly cause you're so stoked on it. So it's important to stay balanced. And then same thing, when you're in the lowest lows, like remind yourself that it's not that bad. Like it's really just all perspective. And if you could stay at that horizon, like you'll stay like coasting where you need to go, you know?
That reminds me of a Buddhist saying, in pleasure or in pain, the wise man stays the same. So that's like keeping neutrality. Keeping neutrality it requires self-mastery, because literally the world around you, from peoples to events, is set up in a way that pushes your buttons, because we're survival creatures, right? So we're like, anything that we detect is either, oh, I'm safe, or this is a threat.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't master yourself, you're going to be played like a piano to that degree, right? But really, you being able to neutralize both good and bad around you, like you said, because you can be very much blinded by the good things happening to you, or the things that, like positive feedback that you get. The problem is when you do that, you're making yourself dependent, enslaved on external environments and feedbacks. Good or bad. So keeping that neutrality, what it actually is doing is it puts the power back to you to decide how you want to react. But that's a lot of training, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's why marriage is a nice training ground for that, because you're tested with that every day, right? So if you give it that play-like mentality, it becomes like, sparring.
Yeah.
It becomes and you get better at it.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, the more you master it yourself, the easier you bring that person on board. You're not bringing them on board like this.
Yeah.
And if like you do, they hate you.
Yeah.
If you bring them on board like this, I've seen that too. You think they respect you. Some people do. They don't. They're just afraid of you or dependent on you.
Dude, you're not supposed to be boxing your partner. You're meant to be dancing with them, right?
Yeah,
you're meant to be doing a salsa or something.
Yeah,
you know?
And there's always like tension, right? Like in the salsa, there's like, you take on pressure, you relieve pressure. It's all like a balance of energy, good and bad.
But it's a flow rather than it is a kind of
force
hit.
Yes, it is. And I think that's where you really, like, as a masculine leader, is often understood, I think, very wrong, because people associate that with pressure and strength and hierarchy. It's really not. It's that emotional stability that you can provide. If you're unshakable as a guy, if you're neutral, dude, you're leading because ultimately you're almost like dispossessing every other person of their tools.
Yeah.
Like, you're unshakable.
JP talks about this. It's not about your level of being able to control your anger. So it's to have access to that, but to be able to keep it under check.
Yes.
Yeah, and I heard something. It's something like the feminine energy is very loose, and like it's like a yoke, and like the masculine energy is like the shell. And so like when you find like the yoke, you kind of like you hold them by, like you said, being unshakable, by being stable, so that they can be free to live in their feminine and have like the masculine as an anchor to balance off of, And so I mentioned to this, like, you last week when I saw you, like, off camera. I read this book, what is it? The Law of Human Nature. And it talks about like how you can't see your own flaws. It's like an optical illusion. Like, with eyesight, you can't see your nose. It's just like, so your ego creates an optical illusion around your flaws. So you don't know. But when you have a marriage or a relationship, it mirrors you. So she'll tell you what you're doing wrong. You think it's uncomfortable, right? Your ego's like, nah, she doesn't know what you're talking about. But it's the mirroring effect. And that's why I think marriage is so important, because it makes you so much better because you have the mirror reflecting you like everything that you're not doing appropriately or accurately, and it's uncomfortable to hear, but once you like start to understand that everything's for your own best interest, you know, and then it helps you to become that better person. It's like a huge tool that like that people don't have.
I'm going to put an asterisk on you saying marriage makes you better. That's assuming that you are in a mindset where you're willing to grow and open up to the other person's opinion.
I guess that's true.
You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the reason you're able to level up in the relationship with your wife and her as well.
Vice versa, yeah.
And vice versa, right? That's because you guys are able to humble yourselves and realize that if I go about this the right way, I can actually look at her, see my flaws, and by doing so, because I respect her and love her enough and know that she wants the best for me, give her that benefit of the doubt and work on myself.
Yeah.
If you don't have that,
That's true.
you know, if you don't have that, marriage can be hell. I don't think it's a guarantee to level up, but it's the best opportunity to level up if you go in there with that humility and with that understanding that we are one.
Yeah.
Like we are here to consciously elevate, to spiritually elevate one another if we do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like I think you have to have the right partner. And it's like why I feel so lucky and so blessed. And like with my wife particularly, one, it's the longest relationship I've ever been in. It's like 7 years. I've never been with anyone that long. But like the more I'm with her, it's like the deeper I know her and like the more I love her and appreciate her. And like I almost could see like my daughter, like I imagine her as like she's just a little girl. Like, you know, I could see that level of like pureness in her. And, you know, obviously like women will have their attitude or whatever, but now it's like now I'm not reactionary to it, like where I'd be like, now I'm like, oh, she's just a little girl throwing a tantrum, like it's okay, like, you know, and I could love her through it and be there. And then like you said, it diffuses it. And so another part of her is she's like so into self-development, like she reads and like studies and is always like doing courses for a business, for whatever, right? So she continues to evolve herself. And when I'm like on a bad like slope, you know, like holidays, I usually like smoke a lot of pot and watch movies and stuff, but she stays on point and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta like get back to it, catch up. And so like when both people are growing, it helps evolve it. So like if one person's growing and the other person's not growing, like that relationship's going to be very unbalanced. Absolutely. So it doesn't have longevity. So for whatever reason, dude, I got so lucky with my wife. And, you know, I've been in Vegas my whole life. So I've been out, you know, in the streets with these women for too long. And so maybe I developed that from failing, you know, from failing with women. But like I just got so lucky with her. She's just my specific, like, perfect counterpart, like for me. I don't know if she would work with anybody else. Like I don't know if they'd have the patience for her, but I don't know. So I just get lost in your eyes with your shirt, bro. I can't like I just can't like I can't even think.
He's a lover, isn't he?
It's a beautiful color. It's a beautiful shirt, man.
I can't do it, dude. I like look at you and I'm like hypnotized, Mark.
If you feel like that, imagine how the girls feel about it, bro.
Dude,
it's game
can't.
over, man.
Game over, bro.
Game over, bro.
Boys.
Dude, oh man.
It's beautiful.
So where do we go from here, boys?
Yeah, I thought you're doing a marriage podcast here, and I'm like sat in the corner like, I'm not sure if I can comment on this.
Yeah.
So I had recently had to rebrand the podcast to Fearless Evolution. So I think that
Love it.
It's you know, at every level you have to face your fears to evolve. So where are you at with your evolution and facing your fears, Mark? Then we'll go to you.
I'm facing my fears every day in some way, I think.
Yeah. In what
Yeah.
context?
I have kind of micro commitments that I've made to myself in the areas that I feel like I really need to level up in. A lot of them are like discipline, you know, sticking to the systems that I've kind of set up for myself. You know, I think it's a process of kind of looking within, asking big, hard questions to yourself, and then reviewing it at the end of the day. Puya and I talk about this review thing that he does at the end of each day, where you kind of just rewind what you've experienced, go over it, feel it, and think through like the situations that you've been in or the people that you've talked to, and how, you know, how well did you do?
Yeah.
Some of these, like, you don't have to make massive changes in your life all the time. You just need to isolate the things that you know need work, and then really just try and tweak them. And then over time, these compound into a new you. And I think it's important to kind of sit with those things and like I said, ask the big hard questions.
That was going to be my question. It's like, what type of like big hard questions are you referring to?
Like, what's something that I'm avoiding that I know I need to do?
Like eating healthy or like?
I mean, yeah, sounds like that could be yours.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's an example of one that was definitely a problem for me. So I decided I needed to change that. So I got myself a personal trainer, aka, I'm then doing that side of things, and the nutrition is taken care of. And then it's like, well, what's the next hurdle I need to kind of move over?
What is it?
And applying that across all my stuff to do with business for me at the moment. Like things in the creative realm. I'm making an album at the moment.
Let's go.
Yeah, cheers. But that's something that I'd avoided for a long time because I felt like it was too big of a challenge for me to meet. It's easier for me to release one single at a time, and even that was difficult. I'm stocking things up on my hard drive and not believing that they're good enough to put out. So there's a process, I think, of just allowing yourself to kind of move through stuff and not worrying too much about how it gets received, and knowing that as long as you're trying your best and really giving it a good shot each day, and surround yourself with good people and having regular conversations with them and checking in and being honest with yourself. I think that's a big one for me as well. How honest am I being with myself? Am I saying at the end of the day that was a really good day and I'm just checking off my box to myself so that I can feel good when I go to bed?
Do you ever know that you have like a thought of like something that you need to do, but you just haven't said it out loud because then you have to like hold yourself accountable?
All the time.
Oh, dude.
That's why it's good to write that shit out.
I won't even write it because I'll be like, fuck, I'm going to have to commit to this, dude.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to admit those things to yourself, though, because you rather just deal with the stuff that that's either already in your routine, or is familiar, or is a bit easier, or is safer, or is comfortable.
Yeah.
Like all those things that like we're used to, which does not help your adaptation, does not help your evolution.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of, you got to be tough for you. You got to be tough on yourself.
Yeah.
But that's the joy of actually progressing through anything. Because otherwise we'd just be, sitting around.
Yeah, fucking off.
Doing nothing.
Well, all right. I have one more question before I want to hear Puya's. But is there anything you have like, not necessarily fear or like, but like that like level of uncertainty that's like a scary challenge that you're facing? Like maybe the album, I don't know. Like, but anything that you're like, just like, fuck, I gotta just jump.
I suppose probably relationship.
Yeah.
Like that's the last step for me, really. I want a family.
Yeah.
And I'm a single guy. So there's a part of me that's, if I view myself as the problem in that, to some degree the problem, then it means that I need to get over my fear of commitment. And that it plays out across a few different domains for me.
Wow. That's deep,
so,
bro.
Yeah, I mean, it is deep, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like I've had relationships and I've not managed to stay in any of them. So that's why I'm still single. 42 years young.
You're 42? No fucking way, bro.
Yeah.
Dude, I thought you were like 34 or 35.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm kind of a late bloomer though, so I feel more like 35.
So are you. You look super young too.
Well,
you were
I'm
34. Yeah, bro. Same thing. You look 20, 25 maybe. Crazy, man.
Dude, that's how old are you?
I'm 38.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you look like 34. Ish.
He has the red mask things. He got some
the red light mask.
Dude, thank you for sharing. I'm like being vulnerable about it because I'm in the like same type positions where facing uncertainty, but just being brave enough to go through it. For me, it's just the expansion to the upstairs. So this is like 800, 900 square feet, but we're moving into like 2,800 square feet, and so it's like a very
Congratulations.
Yeah, everyone says that, but it's like there's nothing to be congratulated about. It's like I'm just decided to climb the mountain, basically, and so.
But you'll make it work.
Congratulations on having courage over fear, man.
Yeah, thank you. I guess that's something to be
That's a bigger congratulation than any visible outcome, in my opinion. And
so that's like, facing that fearless evolution. Like I know that I have to evolve and I have to be brave and I have to be like, have courage and go through it instead of freaking, I love what you said about the buffaloes. That was you, yeah?
The buffalo?
No, you didn't say that?
Dude, what was
Oh,
it?
so apparently, it must have been somebody else. So the buffalo is like the only creature on earth or animal that like sees a storm, and like when they see the storm, they don't like run away from it like other animals. They just run towards it, like, and then they cross it because they know that they'll like the sooner they get through it, they'll just be on the other side of it.
Huh.
So
Cool.
I thought that was you. It sounded
No,
like a really
but
wise
that's,
Puya thing.
that's
to say.
beautiful, actually. That applies to every fear, man.
Yeah. Well, okay. So where are you at in your fearless evolution?
Dude, like, that's a heavy question, man. But if I had to give to you the deepest possible explanation of this, and I've only said that to myself, really, and I had this conversation over the last few months with myself, like, what is it really? Because we speak about fear as the necessary stepping stone towards your spiritual evolution and towards your connection with the divine. Because the opposite of fear is trust. And trust is rooted in faith. And so there is this triangle in which fear is necessary for you to overcome. And there is this leap of faith that you take via courage to do the things that you know you should be doing, but that you're avoiding. So I was asking myself specifically, what is it that I'm actually avoiding? And I was really thinking about reoccurring dreams that I've had over the last 4 or 5 years that now within the last few months have subsided. And it came to my mind one day, like, why? Why did all of a sudden my dream change? I had this one dream where I would essentially be hunted by someone or something, some energetic entity. In the dream, you don't really know what it is. And I would be running away from it all the time. And so I was always scared. I would look over, I would run away. It was a very stressful dream. I've had that probably since 2015 or 16, reoccurringly.
No way.
And at the end of it, I would never be caught or hurt. I would almost like be able to hide or escape. A lot of times I would elevate into the air and that thing would kind of just be there. And I would just take a breather. So I was okay. So I was thinking about what that meant, because to some extent, I knew that resembles a fear. I'm running away from it and I'm facing it over and over and over again. And here's what I came up with, what that actually means. I think that entity that hunted me stood for a certain type of potential that I have that remains untapped. I'm not living up to who I would become if I was doing the things that I know I want to do, but I'm talking myself out of because of fear. So that thing represented itself. And why do I think that was that? Because in my day-to-day life, I knew there were the things that I wanted to do, like starting the podcast, doing the business, doing the modeling. But then the fear would come in. What are people going to think of you? You know, what are your family and what is your family in Germany going to think? Your friends are going to think you're just doing this because of this, and that. So all these fears came up. And so at the end, I was like, yeah, but you have a good job, you make a safe amount of money, you have a decent life. So I negotiated with who I could become and then talked myself out of it, which was the safe zone in my dream. I was never caught by that fear. So what it really was I could be that potential, but I'm afraid of doing those things. And in my day-to-day, I'm negotiating myself out of it. But you're still okay. You're still doing some things that are difficult. And then when I went into doing the things, starting to do the things I actually wanted to do and take that leap of faith, courage over fear, all of a sudden the dream subsided.
Wow.
So within the last 6 to 8 months, I don't dream that anymore. And I think that is because now I'm proactive about, I have these dreams, I have these desires, and I have the fears attached to them, but I still do them. I go after it. So to some extent, it's the completion of an iteration of the hero's journey, facing the dragon you're afraid of and overcoming that. And ultimately, it comes down to courage over fear, right? And so courage is, the definition of courage is with the heart, courage, French word. So you're doing something with the heart. What does that mean? You're going based on a feeling. You're going based on faith. You're going based on intuition. You're going against the rational mind representing fear, representing the devil to some extent. The survival, exactly. And by doing so in the religious text, you're essentially guaranteed that you will be okay. You will be able to transcend that. And it's so crazy. Doing that literally allowed me to change that dream state. I'm not experiencing that anymore. And you will become more than you were before every time you face a fear. We always talk about that. And there also seems to be layers of fear. You need to peel down one fear to see what else is behind that. You cannot rationalize beforehand, oh, I need to do this, 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 and that. What comes to mind you're afraid of? Face that and see what happens next. And when you do that, actually you become addicted to it to some extent. Because the release of feeling self-trusting and feeling faith in yourself is something you will chase after that again and again. And it allows you to move away from these short-term adventures, like doing the stupid stuff that we all do, drinking and eating poorly and doing all the stuff that we know we shouldn't be doing, because now you're almost like using that fear as a compass to go towards, knowing that when you complete that, you will be more than you were before. But you need to take that leap of faith.
What are you fearful of?
When I peel all the layers back, have you guys read the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill? So it talks about like the six fears that plague mankind. When I peel all my layers back, I only have one fear.
The 6 fears. He was really early on the social media style, wasn't he?
The fear of criticism. It was like fear of criticism, fear of death, fear of loss of love, fear of ill health, fear of poverty, and then there's one more. I can't remember it. I always struggle with the last one. But mine is the fear of poverty. So I grew up very impoverished with my dad was like a drug addict, and he had took us away from my mom, and we lived in trap house to trap house, and just crazy stories of basically poverty and drug addiction, right? As a adolescent. And I was really a bad kid after that until, I don't know, 18, 19, maybe I've stopped being as bad. But so when I peel all the layers back, I only have one fear of anything. And it's the fear of poverty. And I didn't realize that it shaped my decisions. I wasn't aware of it until I kept peeling back. Why is this bothering me, right? Unexpected bills I'd be upset about, or losing money. Everybody loses money on trying stuff like ads or whatever, right? It would make me so upset. And then I was like, why am I upset? And it was well, I could lose money. And then what happens if I lose money? Then, then I'll have less money. Okay, what happens if I have less money? Well, then my security, then I don't have security and I'm at risk. And then I was like, okay, well, what if that happens? Then I would be in poverty, and being in poverty is super painful. But now I know that poverty is just a state of mind, and I can never be poor ever again because of how much I've developed myself. I can create value in the marketplace and always be okay. But I still do catch myself having, for example, going upstairs. The lease on this is $1,800 a month, and this is its own entity, so it's a baby business. And the lease up there is $7,300 a month, and it's a big leap for this business. Obviously, my other businesses and all my stuff is super secure. I could always take money to make sure that it's cool, but thinking of this as its own entity, it makes me feel that it brings me back to that oh crap, oh shit, this is very risky. I could make a mistake, and then I would be in poverty. Obviously, that would never happen, but those are the battles I overcome in my mind. But then, my anchor is what I always say, anytime I feel that trigger come up in any context, I always tell myself the supply is infinite, right? The supply is infinite. It's a cold, hard fact that the supply is infinite. And then everything works out for me. I don't know why, I'm just lucky, and it always works out. So those are my two things I always say that overcomes everything.
You're not lucky, you're just hardworking. And I think what you need to give yourself some credit for is that you know that you're not going to mess up again.
Yeah. Well,
so you're fearful. No, you know that you're not, because you've done it before.
Yeah.
And you've learned from that lesson.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to be concerned with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I have that fear sometimes where it's if something big comes in, it's am I going to make sure I've got to nail this?
Yeah.
And you don't want to feel and it's because you've tripped up before that you think, what if I trip up again? But then that blocks you off from ever getting any further, and you stay stasis.
Yeah, because you could be safe, right? You could play it safe. I could be here, bro, and not like this business is doing fine. Like it's totally comfortable. Like I love coming here, I hang out. It's not like super busy where like, you know, I'm working all day long all the time, but like it's totally cool. And it makes a cool extra income. But like transitioning into upstairs is like pushing that boundary of comfort from this like entity and stuff. So that's like the only real fear that I face is like really the fear of poverty. And but it shows up in all kinds of different ways, you know. And like I got a lifetime membership, and that was like huge for me. Like I had to do the level of mental gymnastics I had to do to get a lifetime membership. Like but it's fine. Like, you know, obviously like I can sustain that. And but it was like, to me, it felt irrational and all kinds of stuff, and it leads back to that.
Yes. So your strategy of coping with that is you're so aware now that you can switch from looking at it from the perspective of a human to thinking like as the universe would think in terms of the infinite supply. Yeah. So you're able to switch that.
Yeah. That's the only way I could save myself. And like, or go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. And so I guess I just wanted to ask on a practical level, are you just now, because you still fall into that framework of fear, which is normal, but now you become aware of it more quickly.
Yeah.
Super and you don't allow it to derail too much and take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
So to some extent, it's not about this. It's not about completely getting rid of that fear, because it's inhumane. We do exist on this physical plane, but it's our relationship with the divine, or the universe, the infinite, whatever you want to call it, and the awareness of that allows us to switch into, let's look at it from the eyes of the universe rather than through the eyes of Oscar. Because the eyes of Oscar are limited. Yeah. But the universe is unlimited.
Yeah, 100%. And so like it's such a paradox because so it's tax season. We're going through all our accounting, whatever, and we only profited like 80,000 last year, which is great. But like, you know, we're looking at the numbers and I'm like, dude, like we could have made a lot more profit. Like why is it so limited? But accounting and like, it's so like human, right? Oh, you're good, bro. It's so human to like categorize and label it. And so like, we're trying to be a little bit proactive, like, right? Like, you know, dial in the budgets and stuff. And my wife, like this weekend, she was like, oh, can we go shopping and do all this stuff and whatever? And she's like, is it in the budget? And I was like, it's such a like, I hate that question because it's like, technically like no if we're trying to maximize profits, but then also like everything's always going to be fine. Like the supply is infinite. It doesn't matter how much we spend, like we'll be totally fine. We always are. So it's like a paradox, like, right? It's like, should we be more like conservative, like maybe like to get the bottom line juicier, but then like, does it matter? Like not really, because the supply is infinite, you know? So like, I don't know. I struggle with that too.
That's a difficult one, I think, because we know from the religious as well as the esoteric text, you can only have what you have, right? And the meaning of that is you can only have what you already have within. So for you to be wealthy, you have to be wealthy within. So when you say that the supply is infinite,
exactly.
So you're already telling yourself from the within that you are wealthy. Yeah. It's the same thing like Joel 3:10, let the poor man say he's strong. Let the poor man say he's rich, let the weak man say he's strong. It's the same thing, right? Yeah. So how do you do that? You declare that. You say that you have, right? But what that actually means is that you need to feel that. So there is the saying of it. Exactly. And also that feeling of, if I was actually wealthy and if it's actually infinite, I should sense a level and feel a level of peace. Yeah. And if you do that, you actually have.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because, like, who cares if the bottom line is juicy? Like, who cares? Like, what are we going to do with it? Like, have everything we desire. So, like, just get everything. Because when I do that, when I try to, like, focus on the accounting and, like, stick to the budget, it does stimulate that, like, fear, that lack. Because, like, why would I not get that, right? And there's a level of, like, obviously being responsible and stuff. Like, you know, I'm never going to, because of the fear of poverty, like, I'm never going to put us in a position where we're not secure. Like, you know, and that's, like, my main thing. Because I can't even think straight. Like, no matter how hard I know that to be a truth, like, if I was unsecure and unsafe, like, with my finances, I couldn't think straight. I'd be like, oh crap, I have to like shake trees. I have to do whatever. And I've gone in like seasons of that where I like just go super hard, like hardcore sales team, sales, like, and I'm doing everything until I feel that security again. And so I don't know, it's just like part of the human experience, right? Like it's, but going to the fear and the faith, it's the same thing. Like if we focus on the fear and amplify that energy, it materializes. You focus on the faith, it materializes in the direction that you want it to. So like either way, you can materialize whatever reality you want to. And how it happens is like, how am I going to have enough? How is the supply? Like who knows? Like, I don't know. I'm not the infinite, like,
Right.
I have no idea, but I know that it'll be there when I need it. So I don't know. So that's
Yeah,
why.
I'd argue that your potential chasing after in your dreams, which is basically, you could interpret that as your shadow, is the thing that you need to turn around at and actually face. It's exactly the same thing as your fear. It's exactly the same thing as my fear. It's just the thing that we need to face the most. So perhaps I need to really find the commitments within myself that I need to apply to all of the areas in my life to make me be and feel is the word, like a committed person. So I will draw in commitment to my life, and then I will find a partner that wants to commit to me and vice versa. And the same thing goes with you, with your commitment to money and the commitment to that being the family thing, as opposed to like what you can accumulate.
Yeah.
Because it's for the good of your daughter, essentially, like you want to give her the best life possible. And yours is the same, like overcome the things that you've told yourself for some reason that you can't do or engage in or talk in front of people or whatever it might be. All of those things, we have to face them all, boys.
Yeah.
We got to go, you know what? Whatever. Bring it on.
Yeah.
And that's so true, and it's also scientifically true, because in psychology, the most validated strategy to overcome a fear is exposure therapy. So whatever you're afraid of, they break it down into a conquerable piece and expose you to it. And by you exposing yourself to that fear voluntarily, they are not supposed to throw you in there. So that's So
oh, really?
Well, it's like you actually did. That's how you get PTSD.
Oh, wow.
So it's voluntary exposure to something you're afraid of.
Oh, wow.
And when you do that, you become more courageous, and your courage then applies across different fears, not just specific to that one fear you overcame. And even from neuroscience research, when you actually just walk, your amygdala response, which is your fight or flight, your primal response, is reduced, because what you're signaling to your brain and to your body is that you're not retreating, you're approaching, just simply by walking.
Oh, wow.
You are
By
the
going
buffalo.
on a walk?
You are the buffalo. That's exactly what
Yeah.
it is. So you're approaching. You're not the prey. You're the predator, if you want to
Wow.
say.
Yeah.
So that in itself,
Wow, that's crazy.
and exposure therapy, which is the proactive exposure towards what you're afraid of, and us knowing every time we face a fear and overcoming that, the building of self-trust as a result of that, we know that to be true. It's just, despite knowing that to be true, and we know that so deep within, we still find ways here and there to talk ourselves out of
It's
it.
like the triggers, right? Like,
That's
and
it.
it's the neural pathways that like you've routed from your experience. And so like it's hard because when you burn your hand, right, like on a stove, you've now ingrained a neural pathway.
Right.
And now like you're like, oh, hot stove. But like maybe it was impractical. Like you don't need to be afraid every time you walk by a stove. Like, so like reprogramming that is a challenge. Like, and it's crazy that you're saying like you run towards the fear. It's almost like you said, it's like unnatural. Like you're not supposed to. Like,
Yes.
So if you could use that as a trigger to like run through, like that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's also the religious promise, right? It's like, do not be afraid. You're made in the image of God. You're part of the divine. You're able to transcend that. Like all spiritual text is literally about that. And also that the kingdom of heaven is within. So all of these are internal processes playing themselves out. And so it's up to you and where you want to put your attention on, because what you said was spot on. The fear or the faith, it's really, what do you concentrate on? What do you put your attention on? Because if you have that image within you that, oh, things are going to go wrong, this is never going to sell, I'm not going to have enough clients, what you're doing is you're having faith going
In the wrong
the negative.
way.
Exactly. But it's you putting your attention on that.
Yeah.
And it's under your control to redirect your attention towards the opposite, right?
100%.
So there's two acronyms that help me when it comes to the word fear. One of them you probably heard before, which is false evidence appearing real. But the other one that's actually really helpful is forget everything and remember. And that one is
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
an empowering one because it's like, look, you've been through things before. You've been good. Has it not always been good? The
Yeah.
answer is always yes.
Yeah.
So it's just forget everything that your brain is trying to map backwards,
Yeah.
and remember that you've got this, and it's always been fine, and then move forward with faith.
Yeah. And everything's gonna
And everything rips, bro.
Everything rips, bro.
always rip.
Everything rips.
100%, bro. I love that, bro. So what are you excited about, Puya? What are you doing now that's got you fired up, creating some positive energy?
A lot of things, man. Well, I'm still working for the Fullers, Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson's daughter.
Okay.
So I'm still working for them. There's a lot of very, very exciting projects that we're working on. So
Nice.
that's obviously my main job. And Mark and I started a bunch of things. The podcast we started, I think, what was it, October last year? October last year, we're working on a protein bar, and we're working on soccer jerseys.
Oh, sick.
So all of that is just freaking pure bliss. It's all adventure. It's all exploration, but it's all tied to something that feeds my soul. Like it's something I'm naturally drawn towards, and I'm going after that. So that in itself is the most rewarding thing. It transcends every like short-term burst of joy that I experienced before. You know?
Yeah.
And so I feel so identified with my day-to-day that my eye is not even on the price so much, man. Not even thinking.
That's the secret to getting there.
It
Enjoying
is.
the process.
And I think to really enjoy the process, you have to do something that you're naturally drawn towards, something that just feels like your soul is always magnetized towards it. You can do things for so many different reasons. Oh, this makes me rich. I get rich fast there. This is safe. But all of that is going with the mind, man. Really going
That's
with the
also
heart.
our environment as well. Like we're dopamine fiends. You know, everything's instant. It's Instacart, Amazon. We want it next day. We want instant dopamine hits. What you're doing there is there's a longer term path for you. One thing I've noticed about you as well, which is epic recently, is because of how much of a logical reasoning type of brain he is, exploring into this open area of creativity is just giving you some kind of new glow. Honestly. No, I'm not just talking about the
skincare. I put a Tencel sheet mask on
I'm not
before.
talking about the machine.
The machine, dude. The machine is in the car, man.
It's true, man. But it's
you,
the
man.
access to, and it's the you're walking into that creative realm, and then you're realizing something within you, and then that is sparking parts that then overspill into other areas of your life. Oh, I wish that for everyone. I wish that for you as well. Like I can see that you have that within you from every single post I've ever seen that you posting, and from the moment that I met you when you were doing the Be Your Own Boss event.
Yeah.
Because you came in and everybody else this was like a kind of a corporate setting, and then you came in and it was an absolute like thunderstorm. It was like had the room like pissing ourselves.
Yeah.
But like there's that natural kind of spark within us all to approach something that maybe feels a little bit different or is the unknown, and that is where the glory is, though.
It is.
When I love my whole career is like creative. Like I was on the podcast yesterday or the other day, and they're like, "Oh, creator," and I was like, "That's so crazy," because I feel like I don't identify as a creator, although I am creating everything that I do, right? Like, but we're all creators. We're all made in the image of God, and we all have. I think the purpose of a human is to create, to like come into this life, have an idea in your mind, and then materialize it and create. Like that's the same godlike power. And so when you're tapped into that, that's where that charge comes from. That's where like, I don't know, people give me that feedback. And, I think everyone has it. I don't think it should be like, oh, I'm a creative type of person. Like, no, we all are. Like, you have to just tap into that power.
And I think it's the suppression of that creative power that makes people depressed.
100%, because the
long run.
opposite of creation is depressing or compressing,
Correct.
depressing,
And
instead of expressing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I had to realize for myself, because I'm very mind, like everything PhD in school, MBA was all like using my brain, using logic, getting there. You get all of that with your brain. I didn't have to be creative. I was just doing it,
Yeah.
But really what it is, it's very, very limiting. And we do have inherently that seed of creative power within us. And it's not just that we can do it. It's almost, we have to do it. It's our responsibility to
Yeah.
do it. And that creativity is also directly aligned with the need to explore, which is also directly aligned with risk taking, which is also directly aligned with courage. And again, courage comes back to going with feeling, going with the heart over going with the mind. Why? Because the mind is inherently limited. The universe of the language is feeling. That's why you get in the external world in the long run that what you're feeling persists in. So for you to really change your environment, you have to change your aura, you have to change your magnetic field. How do you change your magnetic field? Joe Dispenza always talks about that.
How you feel, right? Like
It's how you feel. How do you
the-
change how you feel? You change how you feel by changing your mind. How do you change your mind? Changing your beliefs, changing your thoughts, changing your perspective, changing your attention. But that, all of that, that's where your choice is. How do you make that choice? Through becoming aware. The
Yeah.
more aware you are, you can shift your concentration from here to here. The more you do that, your internal state is going to change. The more that is going to change, the different you're going to feel. The more different you feel, your reality is going to reflect that again, right?
It materializes.
So that's like, it was the realization of that. And
That was after school?
no, it was like really since last year, since we started working on all those things, because I always had those dreams to do those, but I never found the courage to do so. And what that did is it trapped me into a state of untapped potential. So deep within me, the seed within me was like, dude, you could be more only if you would face those fears. But by me not facing those, what did I do for my self-trust? I diminished it. Self-trust is my ability to look those fears in the eye, knowing that there is something tied towards that I want to accomplish, but I'm talking myself out of it, again, through the mind, because I'm rationalizing it through fears.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, what gave you the courage? Like, what made you like bold enough to like face them and overcome it?
Good question.
That's a really, really, really good question. Variety of things. One of it was people. One of them was people like Alex, was people like Mark, that are very feeling based. And I think I was subconsciously drawn at that state of my life to people that are exploratory, creative, and feeling based, because there was something deep within me that knew this is where the gold is to be found. But I would only use my brain all the time. So one part of it was people. The second thing was through the physical. I was able to push myself physically above and beyond my limits. And by doing so, I would put myself physically in the stage of exploration and in the stage of overcoming the fears that I was physically facing through very, very hard workouts, through starvation, like through not eating for days, through going into the cold and doing that. I was activating those same neural pathways that then allowed me to face my mental fears. And the other part, and a big part of that, was knowledge. It was listening to podcasts and audiobooks and reading books to really understand what it is in my brain, emotionally, physiologically, what is actually happening within me when I do the things that I shouldn't be doing and not do the things that I should not be doing. And that also included spiritual and esoteric texts and religious texts. So it was the science stuff, the psychology stuff, mapping it together with the spiritual text and realizing that, well, it all points towards that one thing. Fear is your guiding compass. That thing needs to be explored and needs to be transcended via courage. And then it was exposing myself to that over and over. I remember the first time we came here recording with you.
Yeah.
Bro, I didn't want to do it. It was horrible. Didn't want to do it, man. Like, I was trying to talk myself out of it. But again, being with someone that just does it, that's why it's so important to have that energy around you, because that's definitely going to imprint on how you are, those people around you that are close. And so I think that's why naturally I curated my circle with people that are naturally doing that. And it's a dynamic relationship, because that person then gets from you something that they're like striving towards, right?
Facts.
And that's why it's so important, I think, with anything that you do, if you can curate a team around you, be it your partner, be it your friends, be it your family, that is that embody some of those heroic values that maybe you haven't tapped into yet. And you're just around that. By sheer proximity, you're going to change how you are and who you are and how you think. So a huge part of that is being around that.
That's incredible.
That's the same for me as well. So whenever I'm around creative people, if I'm around other people that make music, I get more ideas. I also get more excited, more enthusiastic, because you're bouncing ideas off of each other. Like that's your vibe attracts your tribe. You know, you're around those types of people. You're like, oh, this is possible. Oh, they are doing bits. Oh, okay, so that means I could try that then.
Yeah.
Like all you need to do is just see a little tiny crack in the doorway that you could try it.
Yeah.
Like,
dude.
And then give it a shot. I get that kind of thing from all of the podcasts that we do together, because he's, again, the very structured, strategic kind of mind, and I'm all over the place sometimes.
Yeah.
I need to kind of like narrow it in, and you help me do that. Like it's an interplay all the time between any relationship.
Yeah, that's incredible, bro. I don't know if you guys know, like that how I started making content was like through music. And so recently freaking one of my buddies, he's like trying to be a DJ. He's doing like super successful videographer who I started Pathfinder with. His name's Andy. And so now he's like doing DJing stuff for fun, but he's basically just like doing a YouTube, like just YouTubing like mixes, right? And like it's pretty cool. Like, you know, we have it on in the background and stuff. And he's like he's into house and like Afro beats. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it, right? But he when I met him, I was like really doing music like intensely. And so he sent me like a bunch of records over. He's like, hey, can you do some vocals for these? And I was like,
you singer?
I mean, I could do vocals pretty good.
Let's
Yeah.
go, bro. That's amazing.
So he sent me a bunch of records, and like as I was like playing with them and like getting back into writing and stuff, I was like, this could be really cool. Like, you know, if I exited all my businesses and I just had a ton of free time, I'd probably just get back into doing music, dude. It's like the best. I just could never figure out how to turn it into like a profitable business, is why I like left it. But I think I would love to make music again.
Well, I argue that it's actually still a part of you. It's just something that you're not concentrating on at the moment.
Yeah.
But the music part of it, or whatever you're doing there, it's still self-expression.
Yeah.
It's actually still self-discovery.
Yeah.
Because no matter what the artist side of you is doing, it's still creating, like you said before.
Yeah.
So we're all works of art and artists at work at some level.
Yeah. And dude, and a reason I think like when I met you at that event is that I've already know how to perform music, like, you know, and I've performed music for years. And so when I just changed the message and like performed a speech, like it was crazy. I was like, holy crap, I can really do this.
You just changed the medium.
Yeah.
You still were on stage essentially.
Yeah.
And you were still up there presenting something.
Yeah.
And that's what captivated me, and that's what captivated the audience there, because you were relatable, realistic, funny,
Yeah.
you know, you were engaging, and you were able to take them. Your speech lasted for like what, 8 minutes?
It was like
but
15,
through that
yeah.
was a song essentially.
Yeah.
You know, you're using your voice intonation, moments where you take it down, take it serious for a second, and then you back up again.
Yeah.
Like, but and then people are like, wow, who is this guy? And all of a sudden you want to go meet him.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, right? Because people communicate, but they don't really communicate, man. It's it's an art to really communicate. Communicate means also, I like root words because they speak to really what that means. It means unify to some extent. So if you're someone who can really communicate, what you're doing is you bringing everyone together in the understanding of what you're actually portraying. So when you're a good communicator and you're able to read that room like that, like you said, go down in voice, go up, be funny, so what you're actually doing is you're creating a community of understanding about a very specific topic for that given period of time.
Yeah.
That's the most powerful thing you can do, right?
Yeah, order, right? Like
order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do more of that. I just don't know how to get into it, or like where to find people to like do freaking speeches at. Like, I don't know. But I don't know. We'll get there one day.
I say you just start with the people that you already know that are doing that kind of thing, and just mention to them that you're interested in doing more stuff like that, and then you already have connections there that are valid and are active in that kind of community. And also, the more that you think about that kind of thing, the more you're going to draw that into your
100%,
sphere.
yeah, dude. But so before we like get out of here, I started reading the Kabbalion. You both have read that book.
Yeah.
And I recommended it to one of Tom Watts' guests. He's like an attorney, right? Super analytical guy. And I recommended it to him because he was talking about all the books he's read. And then I was like, it's been a while since I've read that book. So I went back and read it. And then I was like a little bit kind of insecure about recommending it because it's so like esoteric. And I was like, oh, dude, I hope it like lands with him. He just doesn't think I'm like a weirdo guy, like, you know? So I don't know. So I've been reading that recently, and it stimulates such like exciting thought for me. Like, you know, every time I read it, I'm like, I talk to my wife about it. I'm like, I don't know what this is about or for, but like the thoughts it stimulates is so entertaining at the least. Like, you know, so I don't know. I just thought of when I was reading that book, it made me think of you guys. And then somehow, then I saw you the other day, and I was like, oh, that's so crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Divine timing, maybe.
I know.
The universe
Yeah.
is mental.
Well, so you guys have your own podcast. Where can the people find you guys?
Same on YouTube and Instagram. Lattes and Wisdom. One word.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What about personally?
Personally, at It's Puya K and at Mark Eatson.
Where can we catch a Mark Eatson DJ event, bro? Where can we go to catch a show?
Well, I perform as Bluebird Wood, and you can see me at Live Nightclub, Live Beach Club.
Oh, no way.
All season long,
So you have a
baby.
different name? It's
Yeah.
Blue. What? You have a different entity for that and everything?
Yeah,
like a
Bluebird
whole
Wood.
different account?
Bluebird Wood Music, yeah.
No way.
Gotta
I
find
didn't
all my
even
music
know
stuff,
that, bro.
yeah.
I need to freaking go out there.
Yeah,
and
dude,
see
come
you.
on, let's get involved.
Let's freaking go. Well, I won't drink it, but I'll go and party with you. That's incredible, bro. Thank you guys so much for coming by. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you,
You're the
man.
man, Oski.
Let's
Appreciate
go.
you, man.